On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, did we just get a first round series preview with the Thunder's matchup against the LA Clippers? And who are some swing guys who are going to step up in the playoffs and give you a game that can flip a series and flip the playoff run?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into, did the Thunder just get done playing what could be a playoff preview with the LA Clippers, and who's going to give you a game in the postseason that can really change things? Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch Money, take control of your finances with Monarch Money by using code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're joined today by Michael Martin. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports on social media. Michael, how you doing today?
My bracket is in disarray, and I am devastated. Now, I made that in like 2 minutes, but it's comically bad. It's to the point where it's like I'm closer to a 0% like perfect bracket than 100, but how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, my bracket, like, the sad part is I've never had a year like this where my bracket through the round of 64 was really cooking. I mean, it was special. And then I did lose the Johnnies. I lost some of my big games, but I'm top 20 in all my pools. The down the dunk pool, I'm third, so we'll see. I'm in the 99.1 percentile, which is pretty decent. I just have to really be fearful of what my Vols are going to do against Kentucky. Hopefully not get 3-0'd against Kentucky. Speaking of series, we just watched this Thunder team take on the Clippers in what was a unbelievable game, frankly, that the Thunder won without J-Dub, without Chet Holmgren, with SGA not playing anywhere near his best and his worst efficiency game of this season. Well, Michael, the Clippers right now sit in that 7-8 game with Minnesota. I think that's how it's going to go with that 7-8 game remaining, Minnesota and the Clippers. There's still time for either side to climb up, but ultimately I think it'll stay the same right here in this play-in. Whoever loses that, I think, will be the 8th seed, because I don't really give the Kings, Suns, or even the AD now led Mavericks to jump back in. And last night, there's a lot of emotions from that game. The first thing that jumped out to me was just all the different ways that this team can find a way to win, and that if you let this team hang around, they're going to crack the code. They're going to find a way to win. Because if you listed out what happened last night, it was all your playoff fears. Like, all your reservations about this team in the playoffs is, what if J-Dub and Chet aren't ready for the moment? Well, they literally gave you 0 minutes last night. What if the Thunder do not shoot the ball well? Isaiah Joe went 0 for 4 and they did not shoot the ball well. What if defenses make life hard on SGA? Check, and the Thunder get a win. So it's ultimately an exhilarating game, but what jumped out to you about this Clippers matchup?
I mean, you hit on it, but just the overall perseverance, because there were plenty of times where, West Coast road trip where you could have just packed it in and just said, not our night, guys, let's move on to Sacramento and whatever the next game. And they didn't do that. They were really, really consistent, and they sort of just fought through, clawed their way in. I was pretty down on it early in the first quarter after some of those non-Shai minutes where it just looked like the offense was just anemic, but they kept grinding, hammering away. And like you mentioned, they're going to find a way. Mark is super, super smart, and he's going to make those halftime adjustments. And they really just sort of figured it out in the end, and they had a lot of timely plays and did just enough to get the win. As impressive as this team has been with this all-time net rating or top 2 ever, all that matters really is that they get the win in some of these games. And just because they've been winning by so much before doesn't make this win less impressive, because the Clippers are a really, really great. They're a really, really good team. I like Zubac. James Harden's really revived his career. Ty Lue's one of the better coaches in the league, and looked like vintage Kawhi out there. So I was really impressed.
Yeah, I mean, the Zubac and Harden pairing has been excellent this season. Norman Powell has been really good this season. And last night, like you said, vintage Kawhi, he got to his spots at will, and he had a great night. He shot 50%, en route to 25, 26 points in that game. I thought that Kawhi was really good, and the Thunder's defense on him, especially in that last possession, was really good to ultimately get them a win. If you had to predict right this second, is the first round series going to be Thunder Clippers?
That is a great question because I guess it just comes down to the Wolves and the Clippers and how they'd play each other, and I haven't really looked in that matchup too much. I'd almost say that it's more likely to be the Wolves because the Wolves on the back end have just been sort of torched by teams, even though they have Gobert at the rim. I think you can sort of move him around. And Harden is sort of a pick and roll maestro, and they just have two offensive guys that I trust a little bit more. I know the James Harden playoff resume, but if it's in a play-in game and it's those two guys versus just Anthony Edwards, I'm going to take that over even the addition of a guy like Julius Randle 7 times out of the week. So I think it's close to a toss-up, but if you're going to ask me which way I'm leaning right now, I'd say the Wolves might lose that one.
And either direction, like what a loaded conference this is, that the reward for lapping the field in the West and already clinching the number 1 overall seed is, the Timberwolves could come into town, or Ty Lue with Van Gundy on the sidelines and his excellent defense could come into town. No reward really for Oklahoma City unless AD going back to Dallas gives them a little run. You steal a couple games in the play-in, and all of a sudden here we are. They make history, being that 10 seed to get out of the Western Conference play-in. That'd be a lot of fun to see happen from our standpoint because it'd be a very easy first-round travel, but obviously a pipe dream for Dallas to make it out of this play-in tournament. But I think that either way you slice it, the road for the Thunder will be tougher than a usual 1 seed because of the fact that we're talking about these two teams being 8 seeds in the West. I think ultimately this matchup, if it is the Clippers, it would be fun to see happen because you have the star power of Harden and Kawhi and Shai. And I really respect Ty Lue and what he can throw at you and junk up a game or two. I just don't see a path to the Clippers winning 4 before the Thunder win 4. And I don't know how clean it will be. I don't know if it'll be a 5, 6, 7 game series, but I do think that the Thunder will get to 4 before the Clippers can even attempt to get to 4. So I think that the Clippers at best could take a game or 2 off of OKC.
Yeah, I think at best, you're right. It would at most go to 6 games. I think the Thunder, what you would see from them is just a lot of full court pressure on Harden and really just wear him down. And beyond that, just double the ball out of his hands because guys like Bogdanovich don't really scare me. Norman Powell's a heat check guy, microwave scorer, but he's not a guy who I think is going to beat you in a series. And then Kawhi, it's unfortunate to say, but the reality is, there's no guarantee he's going to be healthy a week from now, let alone in the playoffs for a while. And the Thunder play with a bunch of physicality, and they have a lot of guys to throw at them. And I think J-Dub was really, really missed in this matchup as a guy who could sort of go at Kawhi so you can leave Dort on Harden and let Cason sort of just roam a little bit more. So I think it would be an interesting series. I think that Zubac would be a fun challenge for a guy like Chet for a 7-game series. But overall, I think the Thunder's depth and talent would just overwhelm them in the end.
It's so curious to see it happen because you look at the series to date, which now the season series is over. One of those games, the Thunder had J-Dub playing center. They still won. But one of those games, you throw it out in terms of how these two teams match up. Last night, they didn't have Chet or J-Dub, so you throw it out in terms of how these two teams match up. The Clippers haven't gotten to see this Thunder team with Chet and Hartenstein, so they'd be learning that on the fly in terms of hands-on experience. Obviously, they're going to dive into the film and try to cook something up to match up with that. But it's different whenever you get to see it in person and with your personnel going up against it. It would be, I think, one of the better chess match series of the first round, but ultimately, I don't see a way that the Clippers could pull off the 1-8 upset over OKC. I think that the only team that has a strong chance to pull off the 1-8 upset, and they wouldn't be favored, and I still wouldn't pick them, would be Minnesota. That's the team I think could realistically beat the Thunder. I don't think that they will. I think that they push them hard to 6, 7 games, but I think that the Thunder would be pretty comfortable against any team not named Minnesota in that first round.
Yeah, I would say 5 or 6 against anybody else, and it would be 6 or 7 against maybe the Wolves at most, and I'm right there with you in terms of I'd still think the Thunder would beat them. They would just give them the toughest time there just because of the way that they sort of match up physically with them and their length and athleticism and some of just the weird toughness things and just weird stuff that goes on between those two teams. But other than that, I think it would be gentleman sweep, or 6 games with the Clippers, like I mentioned.
Coming up, who's going to give the Thunder a game? Who's going to step up and we're going to look back on it and say, man, That was the Aaron Wiggins game. That was the J. Will game. That was the whoever game. We're going to have our top 5 games coming up. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Monarch Money, go check out Monarch Money today. Because if you've ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you the full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. If you are looking for that all-in-one convenience to stop juggling multiple apps, you've found that with Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term financial goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Here with Michael Martin. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports on social media. Michael, every playoffs, there's at least a game, a series, where someone steps up who's not one of the big names, not one of the big calling cards. And in this case, like, it wouldn't shock you, of course, if Shai dominates a game and takes it over. And for the sake of fun, let's take out Chet and J-Dub as well, of like, let's just say that those 3 guys can't have a game. They're just going to play how you'd hope and expect them to play. But on a top 5 list, the number 1 will be the most confident you are that they will step up and have a big game that can go a long way in defining a game, a playoff game, and thus a playoff series, because you only need to win 4 games to advance. Who's your number 1 guy? For like, I feel very strongly this person will flip a game.
Isaiah Hartenstein's going to have one game here or there, or maybe a couple of games, maybe an entire series, where his physicality and his rebounding, his passing, and just sort of that floater down in the pocket on those rolls, I think is going to change a lot of things. You know, this is the exact reason why they signed him in the offseason, to play in the playoffs. It was not about chasing some regular season record. It was about to help them further in the postseason. And I think that there's almost a guarantee there's going to be one of those games where he just sort of just goes crazy. I think it was the Celtics game a few weeks ago where he was just making floater after floater after floater against guys in drop coverage. And I think that's something that you could definitely see in a playoff matchup where teams are so concerned with Shai, J-Dub, and Chet, who are banned from this list, that you sort of forget about him and say maybe even let him make him beat you, and he might just do that, and I'm pretty confident he will for a couple games. So
we did not share our list with each other before recording this, so you guys are going to hear our genuine reaction to 1 through 5, and I'm agreeing with you here on number 1 early with Hartenstein, because I think that he'll have like the game 1. That Sunday night, whenever they play, the 1 versus 8 will be telling of, okay, yeah, this is why they signed Hartenstein. Like, look how different they are and how they can manage a game better in the playoffs, and how they can manage the boards better, manage size better. There's so many boxes that he checks that were left unchecked a year ago that it will be very jarring to everyone once it does happen. Now, look, you listening to the show and listening to Thunder content on an off day in March, you're not going to be shocked by any of these guys. We're talking about like when you are circled around social media and you're seeing national people check in on these games and are stunned by something. That's where you get the blank games from. And Hartenstein will open a lot of eyes in that first playoff game because he's so dramatically different from what they had a year ago. But my number 2, and then we're going to go your number 2. Cason Wallace. I think that Cason Wallace will have a game, multiple games through this playoff run where you're seeing him be good on the ball. You're seeing him be an excellent play finisher his whole career to date with his cutting and his ability to float to that dunker spot, ability to catch and shoot threes. And then defensively, this is another moment where it's like, we all know as a collective, we in Oklahoma City and Thunder, the Thunder fan base knows, but the national audience, I think, still don't understand the embarrassment of riches that the Thunder have. And so in the playoffs, when it's more of a half-court game and it's more slowed down and you get to the half-court against OKC like the Clippers did last night, and you're looking around and you're saying, all right, who we're going to bring to the ball, who we're going to try to get a switch with, and your options are Lou, Cason, Caruso, Shai, J-Dub. Like, you have no choice. You have no options. There's no good answer to try to solve this mystery, and I think that that's going to be really magnified come playoff time, but much more than the defensive end. I think he can give you an offensive game too, where you kind of put him in this box and all of a sudden he has a 17-point playoff game that really helps turn the tide.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. We've seen more activity from him at the rim. We've seen some shooting sort of progression from him this year after he sort of started out slow. And sort of to your point earlier, I think that the best example of this, of like a guy having a game, is like if you're looking at it from another team's perspective, like PJ Washington. I'm sure Mavs fans knew that he was really good. Thunder fans and us, we were not thinking he was going to play like that. So if you're on the other side, I think a Cason Wallace performance could be pretty surprising, but for us, it wouldn't be a massive deal. But he can flip games defensively. Maybe it's a game where Lou or Caruso are in foul trouble, and you just see him really take over that defensive assignment. But that could definitely happen. And for my number 2 pick, I'll go with sort of his counterpart. It's always big game Lou, Rylan. It's always big game Lou. I think there's going to be a game where he hits 5, 6 threes in a game and just really flips a lot of things, where he gets on a real scorcher, because we know one thing about him. He loves these big games. He's not going to be afraid. He's going to shoot with total confidence, and teams are going to have to leave somebody open a lot of times, and he might be the best option out of a bunch of terrible options of guys to let score, and he's going to happily go up there and launch a bunch of threes, and I think at least a few games he's going to nail a lot of them.
So we're on the same wavelength here in terms of our cast of suspects, because my number 3 is big game Lou Dort, and we've seen him have big games before. And you even can think back to situations like that Denver game, the second night of a back-to-back on that Monday, where it felt like nobody was playing well offensively, but there's Lou 8 for 14. And so if you take that game and then you make it to where it's not on the second night of a back-to-back and guys just play a smidge better, then you still feel good about what you did to the rest of this roster. Like if you're Denver, and all that you're left with is saying, well, we did our best. We gave our best effort, and Lou went 8 for 14 from 3 and beat us. And like that's the type of game that we're talking about. So I put him in the 3 slot. You make a very compelling argument to move him up to number 2 ahead of Cason, but I'm going to stick with this list here. So I'm going to throw it back to you. Who's number 3?
Going with another one of those defensive guard dogs. We're going with AC, Alex Caruso. We saw sort of what that can look like the other night against the Clippers, of just sort of two-way dominance where his hustle just is overwhelming for other teams, where he's forcing steals, he can switch on to anybody, and he's just such an irritant for those guys to go against, where Kawhi can overpower him, he can shoot over him, but it's just so hard. He makes you work so much for those shots. And just sort of the level of grit and energy that he brings to this team, I think is really, really tangible, even if it doesn't show up on the box score. And just like the other night against the Clippers, a few shots fall, and then he becomes an incredibly dynamic weapon if he's another guy you can't leave open.
I really like that pick, and I think that this exercise is illustrating just how deep the Thunder roster is, because right now you're rattling around the names in your head, and someone's going to get left off this list that absolutely can have a game, that can have another fan base in a tizzy whenever they go off in the postseason. But this team is too talented, too deep. I might throw a little bit of a curveball here. This might be a heat check that goes awry. This might be Valentine. That's not the shot. J. Will is my number 4. J. Will. Because I'm thinking in this context, there's going to be a game where Chet / Hartenstein or both get into foul trouble. And when you're sitting on the opposite side of that situation and you're looking at it from the opposing view of, okay, we did it. Chet and Hartenstein are in foul trouble. They're in so much foul trouble that Mark has to at least sit them a little bit, even though his philosophy is to let these guys play through that foul trouble because you don't want to foul them out yourself. But there's a point where you have to just sit them down, similarly to that Sunday game against Denver. This is using that same opponent as the example for 2 different guys. That Sunday game against Denver, Chet was really good, but he had to play in these small spurts because he got into foul trouble. But guess who stepped up in that game? J. Will. And so you're thinking to yourself, we did it. We solved the Thunder's new and improved front court. And if J. Will comes in and hits 3 straight no-dip threes, you're going to be infuriated if you're sitting on that other side. And how he plays in that small stretch will go a long way in defining that game, because if he's terrible in that small stretch, then you have created a path for a victor that you otherwise wouldn't have seen. But the thing is, whenever you couple in, okay, foul trouble is going to happen, but also Mark isn't going to just sit them out, nonstop if they are in foul trouble. Then you get into this 5-minute window that can really decide if teams can pull away from the Thunder or not. And if J. Will can hit threes in that 5-minute window and use this improving athleticism, improving jump timing on his shot block attempts at the rim, then you can make up for this issue and then turn it into an advantage on the back end of the game. So I think that Jay Will, this might be oh no, Valentine, that's not the shot, but I think that Jay Will is on the top 5 list.
I think he's worth a heat check. He's not on my top 5, but I can see why. I think that he's a guy you just sort of test the temperature on for little spurts. I think against the Clippers it would really work because Drew Eubanks or whoever their backup bigs just don't really scare me at all. I think he could just survive for a little bit. Or if it's against a team like Minnesota, you could go double big with him and Chet like they did last year for very, very limited amount of times. And if both those guys are hitting threes and you have some extra size inside, I think that could really, really change a lot of things next screen or two. Not on my list, but I definitely respect it. I went a different way, and I'm going to say Aaron Wiggins saves playoff basketball at least once. We've seen him do it a number of times. That's why it should be on his basketball reference page, even though it's not. But he has been really dynamic in some of these big moments. And once again, with all the attention that Shai, Dub, Chet, Hartenstein, and even Lou Dort are going to get over him, he's a guy who can really slide in, can cut behind, and we're going to get one of those games where he's really, really creating a lot of shots and getting some things going. That's been one of my sort of issues or concerns recently, but I think we're going to get at least one game or one defining stretch of a game where he really changes things.
Coming up, who will get that coveted 5th spot on who will step up? And let's preview what is the last fun stretch of the Thunder's regular season. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Lockdown Thunder. Joining us today is Michael Martin. Let's talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports on Twitter. Michael, give us your top 5 to this point, and then we're going to reveal the end of the list.
So my top 4 so far are Isaiah Hartenstein, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, and Aaron Wiggins.
And my top 4 are Hartenstein, Cason, Lou Dort, and Jay Will. And you know what? I still feel good about the Jay Will heat check. Let us know in the comments if that was just a crazy take. But I feel like I tried to paint a very good picture. And what's crazy is, again, people are going to be left off this list. We could have drafted and said no overlap. You take a guy, I take a guy. They're off limits. And we still would have had to leave somebody off this list that we realistically feel like could have a good playoff game. But your number 5 is
Isaiah Joe. I think that there's going to be another game where he gets on a heater. I'm trying to look up the stats right now. I don't think there were any games where he made 3, 4, 5 last year against Dallas or New Orleans, but I think that's coming. I think you're going to have one of those games, and we're projecting a deep playoff run for the Thunder, so that's going to give him more opportunities. But he's going to have the ultimate green light on a lot of these possessions, and it's going to come down to, I think, just his comfortability with taking a lot of these contested shots. I think that was a big thing last year of the Thunder constantly looking for good for great, but Isaiah Joe, we saw him swing that game against the Knicks in the Garden where he just totally slammed the door on him, making like 6 or 7 threes, and he's done that a couple different times this year. But I think sort of that avalanche perspective from the Thunder where teams want to help off and they want to make sure Shai can't beat them, if a guy like Isaiah Joe gets cooking, it can end a series pretty quickly.
Isaiah Joe is a great choice because, you think of the high ball pressure against Shai and how if he can hit from the hash mark and really space the floor that way, then the quick decision-making from Shai to get the ball out of his hands, go to the middle of the court, kick it back out to Isaiah Joe for 3 wide open. If he's hitting those shots, it completely changes how the Thunder can dissect that and either forces you to stop defending Shai that way and thus letting Shai get whatever he wants, or if he's making them and you keep letting him make them, you get that separation on the scoreboard and really can boat race a team if everything is clicking. So I think that he is the great choice at 5 because he's, I think, one of the most important pieces that this Thunder team will have in the playoffs. Like, I think that in large part, it'll be simple in terms of if the Thunder reach their goals or not. Are they hitting shots? He's a sharpshooter. He's the best shooter. He's chief among them in needing to hit those shots. He ended up at number 6 on my list. And again, this is in large part due to the Jay Will heat check. Caruso ends up at number 7 on my list because I think that Caruso, like, when we're thinking about it on the spectrum of like fans being upset that like, oh my gosh, of course, he's the guy that beats us. I feel more confident in Caruso just playing excellent defense. And like, that's how he's impactful and that's how he helps you win games. But like, I don't think that would cause a stir from other fan bases if he's just locking you down defensively. Now, he also is a guy who has not shot the ball well this season. And so if you're only going off this season and all of a sudden the playoffs he's back to a 40% three-point shooter, that would create a massive stir. So I don't think it was bad to include him on your list. I just think that in terms of what I'm going to bet on, I'm going to bet on just the defense being impactful. And then he's got to show me the offense more consistently, which leaves my number 5, Aaron Wiggins. I think that with J-Dub being the number 2 scoring option, we've had this discussion this whole entire season. Could he do it? Yes. Is he for sure going to do it? We don't know yet. We have to wait and see. And when you look at games like the Clippers, like he's going to have to defend Kawhi, and he's their best option to defend Kawhi. And that can really, really drain you. I think that it drained him last year against Dallas. And so if you afford him a misstep or two, now he can't have a whole series where he's not a good number 2 scoring option the way he did against Dallas. But you still have to give him grace in a game or two per playoff run that he's just not up to par. And in those moments, can it be Aaron Wiggins who's on the ball, getting to the rim, getting to his spots, creating his own looks against playoff level defense? If that's the case, 1, like he'll be a household name by the end of it. And 2, the Thunder will be able to win those games and then get you back to a new day where J-Dub is great and J-Dub does have those games. There's a reason why we're not including Shai, Chet, and J-Dub, because we expect them to have great games, and everybody should expect them to have great games. But there are going to be games where it's not so great. I mean, look what Shai did last night. He wasn't so great because of the context of the game, but the Thunder still found ways to win. I think that last night, though, to your credit and to give you a bonus point, I don't know why I'm helping you win this race, but Caruso was the guy that won that game for them. So you already have a point in your column of guys who have won you a game so far this year, as we're going to vote on it in the comment section if we had the better team. I think you're going to win, but I had to take the heat check on Jay Whale. But yeah, Wiggins is very, very important. He's one of the swing factors. I thought this was a lot of fun and just a way to think about things on and off day. But Michael, we have talked to Mark about the upcoming schedule. And it's human nature, and I don't blame anyone who feels this way of like, well, the conference is wrapped up, division's wrapped up. What's like, why even care about this last month of the season and just wake me up when the playoffs begin? But to Mark's point, he mentioned how they're going to take on a run here after that Charlotte game of 10 playoff teams or play-in teams that are right now positioned that way. And it started last night with the Clippers. We've talked about that one. Even just a small stretch before we pod again. Sacramento, Memphis, Indiana. Those are fun games. Those are fun games where you can really test yourself and see what you have. Sacramento, outside looking in chance at being a first-round series preview if they somehow make history in the play-in tournament. But, hey, there's still a chance. So what do you hope to see or which game excites you the most? Like, what's your take on these next 3 games?
I would say I'm the most excited about the Pacer game just because their volatility from 3 and just sort of the pace they can play and just sort of speed up this Thunder team. And, the Thunder team has been really good from 3, but just the Pacers are at a different level of offensive of what they can do to you. I think we did this back on a pod earlier this year where I was a little bit nervous about the Thunder losing to them on the road, and Indiana ended up coming down pretty close. But I think that's the one. Honestly, like the Grizzlies just doesn't really interest me that much just because I know that Ja Morant's probably not going to be a factor in a game where Lou Dort and Cason and Caruso are playing. I just don't feel like they match up well with this team at all. And as for Sacramento, I am interested to see how they sort of guard a lot of their perimeter guys in terms of like Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, even DeMar DeRozan. I don't know if Sabonis will be back by then. I think that'll be a total game changer because he's sort of eaten a lot against the Thunder, but it'll be once again one of those matchups for Isaiah Hartenstein where you say, this is one of the things we signed you for is against like this guy. But I think it's going to be interesting. I'd say at worst it's a 2-1, but my go-to game, if you said if you could only watch one, what's it going to be? I'd say Indiana. But how are you feeling?
Yeah, so I totally get all of your points, and you are articulating them very well. I have a problem. I'll admit on the front end, I have a problem. The 2 things I can't quit in the NBA. Number 1, Philadelphia 76ers. I love the Sixers. I'm going to pick them to go to the East Finals next year. I already know I am. There's no point to act like I'm not. I've done it every year since I've had this podcast. So I'm going to do it again. I can't quit the Sixers. I can't quit Embiid. I can't quit Nick Nurse now. I can't quit Maxey. I love Jared McCain. I can't quit them. Number 2, I can't quit Memphis. I'm just fascinated by this Memphis Grizzlies team. And I don't know if Ja's going to even play because he's only played 6 times in March. But in those 6 games of Mickey Mouse March, Ja Morant averaging 31.3 points. His last game he played in, he had like 44 points. He's finally turning the corner a bit on what's been a very bad season for his standards. Let's see if he can parlay that into something against OKC back in the Paycom Center. Part of this is also just like it'll be a national TV game. Can the Thunder, get up for this game because of their opponent? It's a playoff team. Can both teams play all their guys? And that'll be really fun. But I'm gonna go Memphis. Again here on the what to watch for. But I do like that Indiana shout. I really do like that. I really want to see Tyrese Haliburton play because he's awesome. And Pascal Siakam is fun as well. Sacramento just does not interest me at all. Sacramento, of all the teams that could possibly be the 8th seed, including Dallas, I don't think that they have a chance to get a game against OKC. I think that if Dallas made it, then that means that they have Hardy and they have AD back healthy. And theoretically, AD could just go nuclear for one game and then they lose in 5. I don't see a chance that the Kings get you a game in that series. So I just have no interest in it. With that being said, Thunder are going to dominate them tomorrow in Sacramento. So I already have them 1-0. I'm going to go 3-0 week, Michael. 3-0 week. And that might be a bit strong because we can always see the Thunder have the benefit of rest. But are you going to play it safe or are you going to jump on this ledge with me of 3-0?
I am going to. I almost feel like it's safer to say 3-0 with the roll they're on.
Right. This is actually the easy decision in this Thunder season.
I'm going to say 2-1. I think there's going to be an unlikely rest game or something weird goes on because I think that there's some chatter about them that around the fan base like, if they finish the season 11-0, they can get to 70 games. I'm not going to say the Thunder don't want any part of that. I'm going to say that the Thunder, I don't think it really interests them as much as the long-term things, and that's not something they're really going to chase. So I'm going to say if it's just straight up 3-0, but for fun and to debate this later, and you can call me dumb later, I'll say 2-1.
I will never call you dumb, even if they go 2-1, 0-3, 3-0, whatever. But I'm interested in the Sacramento game only from this standpoint. The Thunder have won 10 straight road games, franchise record. Their remaining road schedule: Sacramento, Houston, Phoenix, New Orleans, and Utah. Utah's like not even a real team, so it doesn't even count. That's why I forgot about it. What if they just end the season, just like never losing a road game the rest of the year? I think that aspect and the Eastern Conference aspect of it, which is why I think that you actually made another great pick. I think I've lost the pod, frankly. I'm the host of the show, and I think I've lost the pod. You picked Indiana. I'm really interested to see if the Thunder can be a one-loss team versus the East. You picked a good starting 5 of playoff games. So you did a great job today, Michael. Let them know where they can find your stuff on Let's Talk Thunder.
Yeah, over at Let's Talk Thunder, I just dropped a video that will be out as you're watching this pod, so after you get done, go watch this video. But it is about the OKC stock market 2.0, about how the Thunder are sort of taking that idea of Pat Riley's no rebounds, no rings saying and sort of just flipping on its head as a bottom 10 rebounding team in basically every metric, yet they've been historically dominant. And I did a deep dive into sort of like how that's happening, why the Thunder are specially equipped, and how that can hopefully help them in their title chances this offseason.
So go check that out at Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Go check him out at McClellan Sports. I'm Rylan Stiles, and until tomorrow, be good to one another.